Okay, so without further ado, I want to give you guys an update on Capitol Hill, and there's no better person to do that than Mr. Matt Haller from the IFA. Matt, come on up.
Thanks, brother. Thanks, guys. Good morning. Sorry I missed the memo on the maroon blazer. Similarly, a little bit of a cloudy head this morning. It's been 5 straight nights with Franchise Friends starting Sunday in D.C. with our legal conference where we had 500 or so in-house and out-of-house attorneys and some business side people. And kudos, Zach and Ryan. This is my second year coming to Unconference. I love the Chicago venue. You guys do a great job bringing this group together and really great content. I've learned a lot. I've met a lot of great new people and want to thank everybody here who's involved in the IFA at any level, as a member, as a donor to the PAC. There is a lot going on. And what I want to do this morning, you talked about Capitol Hill. There's not actually as much going on Capitol Hill because we're in divided government. What really is going on is a significant increase in kind of what we call the regulatory state, right? Just government, outside those that make laws, sort of creeping further and further into, this isn't just a franchise industry, franchise sector issue. This is every sector of every other person that leads a trade association is dealing with this mission creep of federal and state governments coming into their business. So can I just get a quick show of hands? Who here is an IFA member? Okay, great. So it's like 80% of the room. If you're not a member, Paul Rocchio is here. Would love to, I'm sure, talk to you. He probably has already bent your ear over vodka soda at some point over the last 2 nights, Paul. And like this room, most of the people in this room are representing, early stage, medium-sized franchise concepts. And when we think about the resources that we bring into the organization through membership, your membership is very helpful, but the funding for the organization, we've changed our revenue model over the last 2 years and really brought in a significant amount of additional money from larger franchisors, restaurant companies. I was just over at the McDonald's headquarters yesterday. We used to have a dues cap on those companies. They were capped out at spending $40,000 a year under our old model. They're now spending, well into the 6 figures in terms of the investment that they're putting into the organization. And I share that because when you look at where we have the most at stake, they have the most at stake, but where we have great opportunity to mobilize really powerful stories, and sitting here during the Shark Tank yesterday and some of the other panels, you guys are great stories. And you guys are, early stage concepts that, will have a ton at stake, right? And you are personally the ones who are, especially founders, particularly head down, focused on, growing and scaling your businesses. And thinking about some of the conversation yesterday and kind of the intersection with what, brands are developing in terms of technology and in terms of, really being focused on, positioning yourself for, a sale to a private equity company. You're focused on being really good franchisors and taking the steps and learning, the right people and partners in the supplier community to work with to ensure that, you're doing things the right way. And I think what I find really frustrating is government's lack of ability to understand how franchising is doing such amazing and good things. Because they're only hearing from the vocal minority who are out there not doing things the right way, or are in systems where a franchisor is too focused on selling locations and not creating operational support. They're not focused on franchisee profitability. If you look at the document that's on everybody's seats or on everybody's table about this Federal Trade Commission investigation, right now, there are 175 comments that have gone into this request for information that the FTC opened up in late March. For those that were at Unconference, I talked a little bit about this. I don't think we had a full appreciation for where this might be heading then, but after several conversations that we've had with the Federal Trade Commission, I think we have a very good sense of where this is heading. The FTC chairwoman, her name is Lena Khan, she has a perception that franchisors control too much power and that they are engaged in unfair and deceptive practices that don't allow franchisees to monetize their investments. That franchisors are engaged in, these are her words, antitrust activities, particularly as it relates to things in the supply chain. She is seeking to resurrect a dormant law called the Robinson-Patman Act that, in a very simple way, says that if you are making money through anything outside the direct terms in that contract, that is unfair and deceptive trade practices. So think about some of the conversation. I think it was Joanne's panel yesterday talking about franchisors, who have revenue streams that are outside the direct royalty payment, and how that looks in your disclosures. The bottom line is the FTC would like to create a rule that would restrict franchisors' ability to, negotiate or change terms in the franchise agreement with their franchisees. What they're missing is they're missing the benefits that currently exist when franchisors make investments and, make that case through communications with their franchisees. How franchisors and franchisees work together productively through a franchise advisory council or through a franchisee association. So what we need at the IFA is we need you guys to help us communicate that message through this rulemaking process. It's a different communications strategy than our typical kind of franchise action network alerts when we send something out and you click a button and there's an auto-populated letter to a member of Congress in your home state. This is a campaign that's focused on a federal agency, but we can do 90% of the work for you in terms of franchisors and franchisees work together. Franchisors negotiate benefits in their supply chain that help reduce costs for their franchisees. These are costs that are going to be borne by franchisees if you can't have that type of supply chain benefit. But ultimately, we need each of you to provide a little bit of the detail from your system and ultimately push send on that communication. So that one-pager on everybody's table gives a little bit of additional context for how to get involved in that effort. Like I said, there's about 175 comments that have gone in today. Most of those comments are from disgruntled franchisees that are asking the Federal Trade Commission to more stringently regulate franchisor-franchisee relationships. And that's something that's not going to benefit in a one-size-fits-all way. A business model that's used by 300 different industries that are all vastly different and have vastly different franchisor-franchisee relationships and supplier relationships and the rest of it. So that's really my ask of you all here this morning is to get engaged in this process, to call on me, call on Paul, call on the team if we can help you sort of communicate this. It doesn't have to be a 20-page legal memo to the Federal Trade Commission. It can be 2 paragraphs that talks about how brand X works with franchisee organization Y, and here's an example of how we've productively resolved issues that arise in our system. Here's how we as a franchisor negotiate solutions for our franchisees with our suppliers that they would otherwise have to negotiate themselves outside of our ability to do that. And if they do that, that's going to create inconsistency in the brand execution. So I encourage everybody to get involved in that. I will be around for a little bit longer this morning. Anything else you guys wanted me to hit? Okay. I apologize for being the guy that always comes in and is relatively depressing about what's going on with the state of Washington and government and these technical issues, especially like I am right now with a little bit of a foggy head. Ryan, yes. Yeah, so the best way to do it is, there's a QR code on this on the one pager here. So that for this process, it's a little bit different than your typical, go to the Franchise Action Network website, put in your zip code, we'll match you to your member of Congress, and you'll get a thing there. So this is a little bit more complex. I think the best way, what we need are hand raisers, right? So, and if this is too complex, just email me or email Paul, and we'll connect you to me or one of the folks on my government relations team. There's 10 of us. This is what we're working on every day. My goal is to have 150 responses into the Federal Trade Commission from franchisors or franchisees in the next 2 weeks, so that we are fighting to even. Because at the end of the day, we think we know where the Federal Trade Commission is heading. We're probably going to end up having to sue them for overreach outside their statutory authority. But the best thing we can do is build the regulatory record with the positive stories, because the courts will ultimately look into that record and see that the commission did not listen to the sector that it was regulating when and if they ultimately go down this road. So it's a bit of a esoteric, complex issue, but ultimately, we need to not overthink what we need our members to do and those in franchising to do to help communicate the, very significant positive things that are happening in franchising and dispel this myth that's being perpetuated by, a handful of very vocal but relatively disgruntled franchisees that have, entered into systems that have not ultimately supported them the right way. Lane. Yes. Yeah, I mean, when you get on the plane on the way home, take a look at this. There's 75 questions they're asking. You don't need to answer any of them, really. You just give the Federal Trade Commission a positive story about how you work with your franchisees in a productive way through a franchisee association or an FAC, and give an example, particularly COVID. Which franchisors in this room, didn't work to take cost out of the system during COVID and ultimately ensure their franchisees were able to remain profitable? What franchisors aren't negotiating, benefits through their supplier relationships, no matter what industry you're in, that a franchisee would have to go and, develop themselves if they were out there as an independent business? And probably create inconsistency in the brand experience for your consumers. It will eviscerate the benefits of the franchise model if you're restricted from being able to do that because of some regulator's perspective that you're engaged in anti-competitive behavior because you're taking a bunch of profit from the supply chain benefits you're negotiating. It just doesn't make any damn sense. But this is the message that we need to communicate to these government officials who are hell-bent on doing something. Thanks, Lane. And I have a 3-page memo that we've prepared for any franchisor that wants to sort of get deep into this. Email me, I'll send it to you. It's mhaller, Haller, at franchise.org. It sort of goes into a paragraph on, the big chunks of this 75-question request for information that the commission is asking about. Sam. The 18th, May 18th at 3 p.m. Eastern. 5:30, sorry. Thanks, Sam. Sam is the chair of our franchisor forum right now. Thank you for that leadership, Sam. Yeah, and the PAC, so when you pay us a membership fee, that's a corporate contribution, right? That goes into our operating budget, helps pay for staff salaries, pay for kind of lobbying and consultants, things like that. We can't give that money directly to members of Congress, right? You have to give individual people's money through a PAC to a member of Congress, and the limitation is up to $5,000 a year that can go to a member of Congress. So the strategy with respect to the PAC on this issue, the FTC, or other issues which I'm not even getting into this morning, like joint employer or tax issues or other things that we get involved in, is build relationships with particularly members of Congress that are going to have an oversight function over these out-of-control agencies like the FTC or the NLRB. Congress does control the power of the purse. So one of the ways, in addition to litigation, that we can engage in oversight and restricting the Federal Trade Commission or the NLRB's oversight into the franchise model is educating them through those relationships and ultimately holding these regulators accountable for their overreach. So as an example, Lena Khan, the FTC chair, was, they have to go up and testify in front of these committees to justify their budget allocations every single year. She was just in front of the Financial Services Appropriations Committee 2 weeks ago. And two members of Congress, one named John Molinar from Michigan, another named Jerry Carl from Alabama, two people that we've supported with PAC contributions, were grilling her about this FTC request for information, saying, what is the purpose of this? Every franchisee that I hear from in my district is very happy and productive and successful without additional government regulation. So this is a way that we leverage those relationships on the policy issues that matter most and exercise that congressional oversight function. Please, Ryan.
I'm sure the answer is yes, but we hear these things all the time, and we always want to support franchising. Getting the franchisees to understand is a little bit different conversation, and they're focused on their business. And we have all this information packets and stuff and emails we can send them. But is there a resource that maybe that I don't know about where someone could maybe come, like when we all have our national conferences, and we could send a rep to our national conference and have a section, like all of our franchisees, where you could tell the importance and then give them the survey or give them action items to do while they're in the room so that it actually gets done?
Yeah, so I was just out at Freddie's annual convention in Scottsdale. I probably do, a dozen of these a year. I was talking to Abby about going out to Unleash thing in October. I got to Red's deal with IFPG. So whether it's me, whether it's Mike Lehman, who's our head of government affairs, Jeff Hanscom, our head of state government affairs, it's a member benefit. Take advantage of it, right? We want to be in front of franchisees. We want to, get out, and I love going to other industries or other franchisors conferences. We're also happy to do it by Zoom, right? So if you're pulling your franchisees together or want to do a stand-up thing, we can do it by Zoom. We've got a studio at the IFA office. We could record a video. You can play it. We don't have to fly out. So there are a million ways to skin this cat. And, let's the more the merrier. So as far as I'm concerned, thanks, Jonathan. Lane. Yes. So Ryan mentioned our summer board meeting, right? So we have our forums, but what we do there is we pull all of our, so anybody that's a max donor that's not sort of on the IFA board or involved in a forum, you can sort of buy yourself an invite to that conference. And, it's about 150 people, and it's a lot of CEOs and big multi-unit franchisees, a few supplier partners. But what we do there is we do our annual PAC wine auction. So there'll be about 70 different lots. And, we've sort of expanded this. We now include, bourbon and, sometimes there's watches. These gifts are in-kinded to the association by, people with vast collections of, very good booze and other things. And you can sort of get something back for your donation by bidding your $5,000, or sometimes people will pool $5,000 into different lots. But it's a really fun networking event too, to be there over the course of 2.5 days with in kind of a retreat style setting. So it's in Newport, Rhode Island this year, June 6th to 8th. So if anybody's interested in talking more about that, find me or Anna or Paul. We are inviting, at most other IFA or industry events, we're pulling together dinners or other things with our PAC donors kind of on the side. So as a member and donor, thank you. We do that. So to bring people together, we're inviting those people also to, things that we're doing with members of Congress, where we're giving a PAC check, maybe outside of DC in a state. So that's something that we've done a lot with our max donors, and it's just another way to network within the franchise community and really build that relationship with those members of Congress that we support. No, it's always, the question is always what's in it for me, right? I think if you're a franchisee, what's in it for me is, I'm getting benefits from my franchisor that, if I'm restricted from getting those benefits, I'm going to have to pay for those, somewhere. Either that's going to be an increased royalty or it's going to be something that I have to go, get on my own. And ultimately that's going to create inconsistency in my brand's ability to be consistent for the customers. And, I paid into this business. I mean, you guys hear this all the time, right? What am I getting back for it? Well, this is a time to communicate that. All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Matt. Really appreciate it. Okay, so next we're going to get into some technology, kind of the opposite of Washington, if I'm being honest, but it'll be good. So we're going to have Mr. Dean hop on stage with his crew, and we are going to get rolling with that next session.